Deshpande, and today I'm here to present a speech given by Steve Jobs, CEO of Apple Computers and of Pixar Animation Studios on June 12, 2005. I especially chose this speech because it tells that how experiences in our life hand in hand teach us values that are really helpful. I'm honored to be with you today at your commencement from one of the finest universities in the world. Truth be told, I never graduated from college. This is the closest I've ever gotten to a college graduation. Today, I want to tell you 3 stories from my life. That's it. No big deal. Just 3 stories. The first story is about connecting the dots. I dropped out of Reed College after the first 6 months, but then stayed around as a drop-in for another 18 months or so before I really quit. So why did I drop out? It started before I was born. My biological mother decided to put me up for adoption. She felt very strongly that I should be adopted by college graduates. So my parents, who were on a waiting list, got a call in the middle of the night asking, "We have an unexpected baby boy. Do you want him?" They said, "Of course." My biological mother later found out that my parents had never graduated from college. So she refused to sign the final adoption papers. She only relented for a few months more when my parents promised that I would someday go to college. And 17 years later, I did go to college. But I naively chose a college that was almost as expensive as Stanford. And all of my working class parents' savings were being spent on my college tuition. After 6 months, I couldn't see the value in it. And so I decided to drop out. At that time, it was pretty scary, but looking back, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. The minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me and begin dropping in on the ones that looked interesting. And much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. Let me give you an example. Reed College at that time offered perhaps the best calligraphic instruction in the country. So I decided to take the calligraphy class. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. It was beautiful, historical, and artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture. I found it fascinating. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were first designing the Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we programmed it into the computer. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would never have multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them. See, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something. Your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. This approach has never let me down, and it has made all the difference in my life. My second story is about love and loss. I was lucky. I found out what I loved to do early in life. I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the 2 of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We had just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started? Well, as Apple grew, we hired someone who I thought was very talented to run the company with me. For the first year, things went well. But then, our visions of the future began diverging, and eventually we had a falling out. When we did, the board of directors sided with him. So at 30, I was out. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down. I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. But something began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did. That turn of events at Apple hadn't changed that one bit. I was still in love, and so I decided to start over. In the next 5 years, I started a company named Next and another named Pixar. Pixar went on to create the world's first computer animated feature film, Toy Story and became the world's most successful animation studio. In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next and I returned to Apple. And the technology we're developing at Next is at the heart of Apple's current renaissance. None of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was an awful tasting medicine, but I get the patient needed it. Sometimes life hits you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going throughout was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love. My third story is about death. Remembering that you'll be dead soon is the best tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I had a scan in 7:30 in the morning and it clearly showed a tumor on my pancreas. And I didn't even know what a pancreas was. I've lived with the diagnosis all day. Later that evening, I had a biopsy where they stuck an endoscope down my throat, into my stomach and through my intestines. They got a few cells from my pancreas. I was sedated, but my wife, who was there, told me that the doctors started crying because when they viewed the cells under the microscope, it turned out to be a very rare form of pancreatic cancer that is curable with surgery. I had the surgery and I am fine now. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the voice of other people's opinions drown out your inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. Because they already know where you truly want to go and want to become. Everything else is secondary. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Thank you.